Right now the player camera doesn't show the planet very well, and I want the focus to be more on the planet. So let's reset the camera position to 0 and rotate it more down. Now when we start the game, we're looking at the planet. I want to get this better view of the planet because I want to start interacting with it. Right now our planet is of the type mesh instance, but I want to be able to collide with it eventually. So let's change that to the type static body. We will immediately get our first error because the planet no longer has a mesh property. We need to add the mesh instance as a child of the planet, so let's create a function where we create this mesh instance. The planet should have a radius property, so it knows how big it is, and we can then use this to call our sphere function. Set the mesh of the created mesh instance, and let's add it as a child. When we play, nothing really changed because we just moved the mesh instance and changed the type of the planet. I want this mesh instance to be the surface and have a reference to it from anywhere in the class, so let's create a variable. To add the surface under the static body, we'll create the addSurface function, and let's set the mesh instance with our create function. The order or place where you do everything doesn't really matter too much, so just create functions and logic that feels comfortable. For example, I can assign the sphere mesh after creating the mesh instance inside our surface function, which maybe makes more sense because then not every mesh you make is a sphere. In this case, it's a bit useless to have a function that just does this one line of code that isn't very error prone. So let's at least add another line where we set the name of the mesh instance. The reason I created the surface is because I also want to manipulate it. Let's do this with the function manipulateSurface. Here I want to edit every point we have on our sphere, and for that we'll need a MeshDataTool and an ArrayMesh. We'll transform our sphere mesh into an ArrayMesh using addSurface from arrays with primitive triangles. The createFromSurface function returns the status if it was successful or not. To see which data type it returns exactly, let's press Ctrl and click on the function, and it says it right here. To see more info about the return type, we can click on it and see that it should be equal to OK. Let's check for OK and return if it's not. The MeshDataTool now has every point of our mesh, so let's go through each of them. We'll get the vertex at the index, and let's just set the y coordinate to the sinus result of the x coordinate. We need to write the vertex back into the MeshDataTool for the change to have effect, and in this ArrayMesh we still have our sphere as a surface, so let's first clear it. And then we can create a new surface from our tool. Once again, check if the result is okay, and then we can set the mesh of our surface to our new manipulated mesh. In-game, this results in the following planets, where the y coordinate is indeed following a sinus wave.